All right, man, peace. So, brothers, it appears to me that Carmelo Anthony is about to be at it again. What I mean by that is, like every other bitter ex-spouse or ex-girlfriend, they try to act as if the toxicity that is within them is going to remain dormant, but it eventually always spills out. What do I mean by that? I did a 3-part series on Carmelo Anthony in which he had an interview with Stephen A. Smith. And I mentioned, I believe in part 1, that it appeared to me that he was alluding to the fact or to the notion that he believes that James Harden was confederate with Daryl Morey in having him removed from the Rockets. It was very apparent to me that Carmelo Anthony partially blames James Harden because he understands how the superstar system works. It's very rare that a GM will just remove a player without the superstars A-OK with it. Normally they have to co-sign whatever the GM does if you're a big enough superstar. And Carmelo knows that at this point in his career, James Harden pretty much runs the Houston Rockets franchise. He probably has the second highest level of power within that franchise after the owner, Fertitta. Everyone knows that if it comes down to a choice between James Hardhead and Daryl Morey is going to go. So Carmelo knows that in order for him to be removed, James Harden would have had to have co-signed that. Now the new emerging subplot is that Carmelo Anthony has been conferring with or discussing these matters with Chris Paul, and that he told Chris Paul in the aftermath of getting removed from the Rockets that you better watch your back as well. We know that after the 2019 playoffs, James Harden stated at the dais that he knows what the problem is, and that eventually he was going to have that problem removed, or at least that's what he implied. We know that he went to Daryl Morey and demanded pretty much that Chris Paul be traded for Russell Westbrook. So that's why I'm putting 2 and 2 together. Eventually, Carmelo Anthony and Chris Paul are going to let it be known that they believe that James Harden was the reason why the both of them were removed from the Rockets. Now, some people might say, why would Carmelo still care about something like that? The reason why he would still care about something like that is because we have to remember, and I've stated this in other videos about Carmelo, he went to the OKC Thunder and to the Houston Rockets because he thought those two teams would give him a chance to win a championship. After he was removed from the Rockets in a very unceremonious way, in my view, he thinks that that sullied his name all across the NBA, and it has stopped him from having the opportunity to join a roster for a team that has a real chance of winning a championship. Everyone is jumping up and down about Carmelo being with Portland. Carmelo knows that Portland has no chance of winning a championship, and I think that he's still a bit bitter about the fact that his overall value as a player has decreased so much that he's probably never going to win a championship. And I'm pretty sure that he partially blames that on Daryl Morey and James Harden, aka James Hardhead, as well as Chris Paul right now, because Chris Paul has basically he's been sent over to NBA Siberia in Oklahoma City. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
I want to keep it on Chris Paul because he went against his friend and former Rockets teammate Carmelo Anthony. In last night's game, Melo was exiled by the Rockets after 10 games last season, later traded to the Bulls, and Chris Paul was, of course, dealt to the Thunder for Russell Westbrook this offseason.
Honestly, I truly believe that the only reason why the Rockets brought Carmelo Anthony onto their squad in the first place was as a favor to Chris Paul. They probably told Chris Paul, maybe they never told him, we're going to give Carmelo 10 games to show what he can do. And after that, he's out of here because he's not bringing enough to the table to keep him around.
After the game, our friend Nick Friedel asked Melo if he was surprised at how the Rockets handled Chris Paul's deal. Anthony said this, quote, "No, I wasn't surprised at all. When my situation happened in Houston, he was the first person that I called to come to my room. And we had to clear some things up, and I wanted to know if he had anything to do with it."
That's interesting that Carmelo Anthony would ask Chris Paul if he had anything to do with it, knowing that the person who would have even more power than Chris Paul is James Harden. I'm sure that Carmelo knows that CP3 would have a certain amount of power. But what that also tells me that CP3 had a lot to do with Carmelo getting on the team in the first place. That he would think that CP3 might have the power to at least have the knowledge that he was going to be removed from the team.
And that was the first thing that I wanted to know. And he told me no. And from that point on, I told him, looked him in the eyes and said, look, just be careful. You know what I mean? Just be careful. And damn sure if, the same situation didn't happen to him.
Carmelo told Chris Paul, just be careful. Why would Carmelo say that to CP3 unless Carmelo was noticing something that I myself also noticed? That being that James Harden is a player who tries to act as if he wants to win, but it's very clear to me that he just uses the Houston Rockets and the concept of playing professional basketball as basically as a platform to express his narcissism. He says things like, I just want to win. But what's implied is, I just want to win as long as I get my 30 shots. I think that Carmelo views James Harden as a player who may have viewed him as a threat. I don't think that James Harden viewed Carmelo as a threat, but I think that Carmelo thinks that James Harden viewed him as a threat. And that's why he told CP3 to basically watch your back.
Mark, you talked in depth with Chris Paul for the Undefeated about how things went down in Houston. He told you that he asked Daryl Morey, 2 days before the trade happened, are you going to trade me to the Thunder? Not just are you going to trade me. I've heard about this. Are you going to trade me to this team for this guy? Yeah. And he says that Daryl told him no.
Yeah, and he strongly said that. And I didn't grab it out of him. You could tell he wanted it out there.
Yes, he wanted it out there because he wants it to be known that in his view, Daryl Morey lied to him, and that in his view, James Harden had helped to orchestrate that trade to get his buddy Russell Westbrook over to the Houston Rockets.
Now, I talked to Daryl Morey, too. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to get into a yelling match with Chris or anything like that. The one thing the Rockets are saying behind the scenes is, well, Chris was told there was a chance. There was a chance. Maybe there was a chance that Chris was like, it's not possible, but Chris truly feels like he was told there was no chance he was getting traded at all.
Dude, who gives a shit what you were told? You're getting paid over $40 million a year. You're not even a top 10 point guard in the NBA overall. Maybe top 10. I'll have to think about it. But I'm pretty sure that if we started to go down the list, there are going to be at least 5 to 7 guys that you would take without a doubt above a Chris Paul at this point in his career. But at the end of the day, either way, whether you're a top 10 point guard, top 5 point guard, you're making $40+ million a year, and you're closer to 35 than you are to 22. Just accept it. It's a part of NBA life. Get over it.
Stunned by that.
I have a huge issue with this.
Well, we know what your issue is. You're one of LeBron James' single fans. So you're going to jump on the side of Carmelo Anthony and Chris Paul, when in reality, you're speaking up for LeBron James' interests because you're upset that LeBron was upset over the Daryl Morey China situation. So that's what your rambling is going to be about.
The problem is, it reminds me of the stories that we heard coming out in Philadelphia during the process, where that's a disciple of Daryl Morey. It becomes fantasy basketball versus being a people business, a relationship business. You can't manage your team that way. Yeah, it's going to catch up to you.
So what do you have which part of the problem do you which part?
If you're going to invite a guy with a legacy of being a first ballot Hall of Famer, who has a great standing in this league, who's done things to better the sport, you better honor that person's career or for the time that you have him in your stead.
Unless he was coerced to bring Carmelo Anthony onto the team and he never wanted him in the first place. Carmelo Anthony is not a Daryl Morey or Mike D'Antoni type of player. We all know that. Or Jeff Bezalic. None of those guys, I think, wanted Carmelo Anthony on the squad. I believe they did that as a favor to CP3 and maybe James Harden as well, who said to himself, we do need a third scorer. We need someone who could assist us a little bit more in opening up our offense, because back in 2018, after CP3 went down, I had nobody else to help me. These are things that James Harden would say consciously, even though subconsciously he's thinking, I just want to get my 35 shots up.
And make sure you take care of them. Or don't go after people like that. Go after other players who don't have that standing in the game. To me right now, between these two examples with Carmelo and Chris Paul, and then also, what Daryl Morey, voiced about China and Hong Kong. And
that's really what you're upset about. You tried to hold it off until the end to act as if that was not your primary reason to levy any level of criticism toward Daryl Morey, but that was the main thing. You're still mad about how Daryl Morey put your boo thing, LeBron James, in a precarious situation over in China.
That situation, I'm not so sure Houston's going to be a desirable place for players to go for the foreseeable future.
Well, no, it's not. Houston is not going to be desirable because there are going to be very few players who want to play with a James Harden. So they're going to have to build their team very strategically, most likely through the G League. They already have another quote-unquote sub-superstar level player in Russell Westbrook. They have Gordon, Eric Gordon there as well. to kind of sort of spread the floor. People are forgetting that he's out right now with an injury. They also have the young kid playing center for them who they gave a very large contract to. So that pretty much is going to be their core for the next 3 to 4 years. And they're going to try to bring some shooters in. That's how they run their team. Now, what Daryl Morey has to watch out for is that, in my view, unless the Rockets make the NBA Finals, he's going to get fired because of that China situation. Because everyone is pissed off at him about that.
Why if you're a player that has a certain standing, who's already established yourself, why go and enter into that situation?
Know what the mistake is? Like, I talked to Pops Mensah-Bonsu,
right,
who's the G League GM for the Go-Go in D.C. And I said, what's the hardest thing you've had to do in cutting people? He said, being completely honest. I have to be honest to a fault. And I think that's the lesson for Daryl and all GMs. Like, be honest to a fault. I know it might hurt Melo's feelings. It might hurt Chris's feelings.
Well, Bri, I have news for you. If Daryl Morey was going to be completely honest to a fault, he would have told CP3 and or James Hardhead, whoever's idea it was to possibly bring Carmelo Anthony onto the team in the first place, he would have told them, that is not our type of player. The style of play that Carmelo Anthony plays is not for the Houston Rockets brand. We want to basically take a lot of three-point shots, and the other players have to be able to catch and shoot three-point shots or get to the basket. Carmelo's first step has slowed down. He's not a good catch-and-shoot player, but he could not say all that because he did not want to get into a back and forth with CP3, a player who basically is going to try to argue you down about everything anyway. We see how he interacts with the officials.
But you got, especially with somebody of their ilk, these future Hall of Famers, be completely honest with them so they know. Like what did Melo tell Nick? Like, he still doesn't know what happened?
Right.
I don't understand how he still does not know what happened, but I know what happened. Melo is very simple. You're an older player. They were tired of you. They did not consider you to be a good enough third option on a championship level team, and your defense was horrific. Case closed.
That can't be possible with those two stars.
Well, look, after the DeMar DeRozan situation happened with Toronto, and he was so upset, I know a lot of people said to DeMar, dude, it's a business. Players have to understand it's a business. Players understand it's a business. No one understands this more than players. I think that what you're talking about is sort of, are you straightforward with me or not? Now, in that situation, Masai Ujiri says, I believe I told him one thing. DeMar believes something else. That's apparently what we have here. I think maybe GMs would be better off kind of approaching the I will trade my mother if it makes sense approach. Tell every player that.
Ainge would have traded Larry Bird, he told.
The reason why they're not going to do that is because they believe that it's going to hurt team morale. Please understand that most of these organizations try to sell family to their players. So if they're that transparent and they're constantly trying to reinforce the notion that we will and can trade you for anyone at any time, subconsciously, what's going to be imbued in the minds of the players is they have no loyalty towards me. I'm not going to have any loyalty towards them. That could affect their ability to re-sign players during free agency. It could affect their ability to sign players from other teams during free agency. So there's only so transparent you can be as a GM if you're trying to maintain a positive atmosphere in your organization.
I mean, Danny has said that to every guy, and Paul Pierce has come in here and said that, and even he, before that deal with the Nets, he said that he brought Paul and KG in to his office and said, I could trade you this season, just be aware of that, and here's why, and I want to be straightforward and honest with you.
Yes, he happened to tell all those players that when they were over 35 years old. That's normally how you do it. When they get to over 35 years old, then you let them know, you know what, I could possibly trade you.
I think that the problem some guys get into is they feel like in that situation, you're like the very specific situation with Chris Paul where he says, are you going to trade me to the Thunder this week? There's a little bit of if you say we could or yes or this might happen or we're working on something and then the deal doesn't go through. Then you have situations where guys say, well, they were working to trade me, right? That was part of the Kristaps Porzingis thing with the Knicks. He's like,
that was also part of the Kyrie Irving thing with the Cavaliers.
Tried to trade me 3 times. Of course I want off this team. So I think it is a balance. GMs are probably best to fall all the way on the other side instead of saying all the way to the like, no, of course I would never deal you. Go all the way to the other side like Danny Ainge and be like, are you kidding? I'm trading this coffee cup tomorrow. Everybody is on notice. And that way it's not personal of, oh, they're looking to deal me. It's that they're putting
or there's a completely other lane where Rob Pelinka has now been saying, I view stars as part of the Lakers franchise as partners.
Yes.
No. Rob Pelinka views LeBron James as a partner. He views Anthony Davis as a partner. So those are not star players. those are superstar or borderline superstar level players. So Rob Pelinka has no option but to put forth a company tagline like that. He can't sit back and say we'll trade anybody because you have LeBron James. LeBron James has more clout in the NBA than 99% of the executives do. So you cannot compare what other GMs are supposed to do or say or what their company culture is supposed to be to a team or franchise that has LeBron James. And they're also trying to sign or re-sign AD for the duration.
Me. And perhaps that's where this can go, where it's such a competitive league, competitive industry, guys will always try to peg other people's failures and make themselves look good. That could be another lane where you're going to just have, very player-friendly executives out there who try to recruit players that way.
Yeah, and look, the Lakers have made that part of their trade book. That comes right from Jeannie Buss. When she gave Kobe the last contract that he had, it was very explicitly partly of, we want to show people around the league how we treat someone of Kobe's stature and everything he has done for us. And I do think it made a difference. Yes, that contract certainly hamstrung that organization, but every guy I've talked to who has talked about the Lakers and what they do as a franchise has brought that up. It is
right, but you know why that makes no sense what you're saying? Just a year ago, we were talking about how the Lakers could not sign any major free agents. Or pardon me, 2 years ago, right before they signed LeBron James. So it's very clear that the players all across the NBA that you spoke to who claimed that they love what Jeannie Buss did for Kobe, that did not impact them enough to say, let me go sign with the Lakers. Not until LeBron James did so, and we know that he did so for entertainment purposes. Of course, he wants to win, but he had a series of ulterior motives for why he came to the Lakers. Most of them being Kabbalistic in origin. So I'm not taking that concept or that notion or that idea about Jeannie Buss and how well she treated Kobe Bryant as something relevant or serious at all.
That resonates. It is a balance, though, of is it good for your team? Dave, thank you for joining us.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. Do not be surprised if eventually over the course of this season, you might see a blow up between Carmelo Anthony and James Harden, or CP3 and Carmelo Anthony making subliminal incendiary comments about James Harden through the media. But anyway, peace.